welcome you all to the March meeting of the RSU 25 School Board. You all, please join with me in pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jim, would you be kind enough to take the attendance?
All are present and accounted for. So we will have 8 board members present.
Okay. Now's the time for us to swear in our new board members.
Swearing in of a new board member, Mr. Wentworth.
Can I read this?
Ms. Webster, if you please take the honors.
You have to sign it after.
Okay,
All right. Repeat after me.
now if I put my hand up.
Does he have to?
No, we don't have a Bible, I'm sorry.
I, Dan Wentworth,
I, Dan Wentworth,
do swear
do swear
that I will faithfully discharge
that I will faithfully discharge
to the best of my abilities
to the best of my abilities
the duties incumbent upon me
the duties incumbent upon me
as a regional school unit board director
as the regional unit board member,
of regional school unit 25,
regional school unit 25,
according to the Constitution of Maine
according to the Constitution of Maine
and laws of this state,
and laws of the state.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Yeah. You sign?
The date too.
All right, that's official.
Just cover the good.
You did fine.
Good job, Dan. Thank you. Now is the time for our public participation. If you would like to publicly participate and you're not in attendance, you can join us through email at publiccomment@rsu25.org, or you can phone in your public comment at 307-8099. I see we've got a number of visitors today. Would any of you like to publicly comment? I know we know each other well, but if you
Yes.
could
I'm
do
Keith
the
Nealon.
usual.
I'm Keith Nealon from Bucksport. I prepared a little statement to read. Over the last month, I've been struggling to figure out what to say. Like many parents in this district, I couldn't believe that last month, this board managed to once again botch the COVID issue. You can justify it however you want to yourselves or to anyone else, but the truth of the matter is that you have repeatedly voted to mentally, emotionally, and educationally damage the children of this district. You've shown a real failure of leadership by taking the decisions about the well-being and education of our children out of the hands of us parents and allowing Augusta and DC to tell us what is best for our children. 3 school years of our kids' lives have been detrimentally affected to protect them from a virus that has statistically killed 0 of them, according to the Maine CDC website. And that's over the last 2 full calendar years of all of this. The CDC website also says that 77 people from Bucksport have died in that same time. By now, we all know that those number of deaths are not the result of COVID, but rather nursing homes, hospitals, and other facilities testing people as they're dying to see if they're COVID positive. I know if this is happening in facilities. There have also been studies that show that the death rate is about 12% of the number of deaths reported that are actually attributed to COVID, with no other comorbidity as being a factor. That would mean that only 9% of people have died over the last 2 years in Bucksport as a result of COVID, which is only 0.04% of the total deaths we've had in this town. Then there's also the multiple studies about the effectiveness of the cloth masks and everything else that we've been wearing. I don't want to go into too much of all the data, It's out there. You guys can see it. You know it. Most of you know it by now. Which begs the, with all this data out there, begs the question, why have you been so willing to negatively affect our children for such a small risk? It's well beyond time that you get rid of the back to school plan as it's currently formulated. Stop making us dependent on the whims of the CDC and let us have control, so we don't wake up tomorrow and the CDC decides again that our kids have to be back in mass and we have to go through this all again for who knows how many more school years. It's time for it to stop. And then finally, if God forbid this ever happens again, I pray that you will learn from your mistakes and use better judgment and let the families of this district make the decisions for their own children. Thank you.
Thank you. We have some other public comments. Okay. Thank you for your public comments. Do we have any that have come in online?
I haven't seen anything online, so
All right. Next, we go on to adjustments to the agenda.
yeah, we do have one adjustment on M1A. Please add Gene Sargent to Administrative Assistant Secretary and under resignations. Okay.
Now we are at the point for approval of minutes for the regular meeting of February the 15th. I would look for a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes of February 15th, 2022.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes? That is unanimous. Next, we have communications and correspondence.
I shared in your communications, we are working on the drafts for the 23 school calendar. You will be taking that up when we have a special meeting next week. The reason why we couldn't do it tonight is we have to allow the teachers time for comment. By the time we work through as a county, didn't allow much time for that. So that's in there. You can see the draft. And that should be what we go with for Hancock County next year for the school. You also have notes on the Hancock County Advisory Meeting, what took place, and Scott will report out later on that.
Okay. It is time for the superintendent's report.
Yep, well, I sent you quite a lengthy report, so you've had a chance to read it. I can certainly answer any questions that you may have regarding the report. We're going to have a presentation on the REV grant. We'll be taking up the net credit billing agreement. I put that in your packet as well. That was online. Very good comments from Ms. Dixon, our lawyer. She kept saying each time I talked to her, you realize you're getting one of the best deals I've ever seen. That's what we wanted to hear. And then we're going to talk about the updates and recommendations I have to our COVID procedures. And go from there. So any questions, I'm happy to expand if you'd like.
All right.
Okay.
Board chair's report. As you probably already noticed, none of us have to wear those masks at the moment, which is very good. This has been, as already evidenced, a very frustrating period for everyone. We very fortunately, although coming very close, having to close our schools, we did not have to close our schools during that period. Jim has just given me a graph of the reported cases per week from our school. I'll just pass that around so everybody can see it. It looks like a similar chart to the Russian stock market at the current moment. So that is really
Yeah, I think we all have one.
that is happening. I also like to keep you all informed of how our robotics team is doing. And our robotics team has gotten another silver medal at Pine Tree event. This is now their second silver medal that they've gotten in their entire history. The last one was when COVID began. So it's fitting that now they've completed their season, I guess, of silver medals. The only reason why they didn't get a goal, I will say, is a very bad call. And if you would like to go and rewatch that, I'm sure that you will agree with me. But I might be slightly biased. But it was a very good game, if anybody got to see that over the weekend. And if you didn't, when the next one comes up, I'll let you all know so that you can have a chance to see it. That is board chair's report. Next, we move on to committee reports. Abby, the curriculum committee.
Okay, we met Thursday, March 10th, so last Thursday. We got an update from Todd and his whole team. Was it your whole team that was there? A lot of your team came to the committee meeting, and so we got to meet them. They gave us the STARS grant update, and as well as a Tier 3 initiative grant update. And they gave us the handout of how they want their outdoor learning center to become like kind of a multi-subject, hands-on learning integrated thing. It's very, very cool. And that they're still in the process of applying for their REV grant. And as part of that, him and his team are taking some college courses for that, or a college course. And so they're pretty motivated and energized by this course, which is cool. And then Evelyn gave us all kinds of various grant updates, which I'm guessing she's probably going to do tonight. No, that's all right. I'll let her tell you about that, because I think that a lot of that's on here tonight. And she also talked about the ESEA grant outline for fiscal year 23. And it's kind of how it works with Title I education to provide extra services to our students, which is wonderful. And then Jen gave us an Aspire Golden Bucks update, but she'll talk about that tonight. And then Jim came in and he reviewed the calendar. Like he busted at the end of the meeting, tried to sneak in, but caused a ruckus. But he had another meeting he was coming from. And he went over the calendar with us, which looked good, and you're going to see that tonight. And then he gave us some district updates.
Any questions for Evan? Okay. Finance committee met right before this meeting. We're targeting to be at about 34% of our budget remaining, and we're a little better than that in most all of our cost centers. Of course, I've been letting you know about transportation, but that is mostly because we haven't brought in the revenues to offset that. So the other item that we talked about was we've got a little preliminary taste of where we are in the audit. The audit is going slowly. One of the reasons is most of these municipal and school districts have received enormous amounts of money from the federal government, which requires a great deal of test work and auditing of those grants. And so we're not the only one that is late, but our beleaguered auditor is working hard on it.
Grinding it up. Yeah.
Any questions for finance? All right, any policy?
Policy committee, we did meet, discussed two policies. Mr. Boothby summarized those quite well in his report. One is around earned paid leave, the administrative procedure on that, and that was an outcome, an outcome of our conversations with the teachers union as to their upcoming contract. There was just a small change there, and the other was in our student wellness policy, and that was driven by our food service audit. That our policy was not quite at the level that was required, and so there were some changes suggested, and we met with April and talked about that and made those changes, and those will be presented tonight for the board's approval.
Okay. Any questions on policy? All right. Facilities and grounds?
Yep, we met last week and we had an update on the companies that were looking to get the information for the RFQs. There was 5 that requested information. I guess 1 is sent back their stuff. It should be interviewed next week. We had a final review of the plans for the middle school athletic fields that we'll be looking at tonight. And they updated us on some of the water testing and other testing coming up.
Just an update on that, Peter. So we talked about PFAS needs to be tested. And as it turns out, because we're on a municipal water supply, that test will go through the municipal water supply district, not for us. We're still gonna have to do the lead testing, but not the PFAS testing. So that was news we just learned the other day. So one less thing we have to worry about.
What's PFAS?
PFAS are the remnants of plastics. And they're
Totally
used-
different than what I was thinking.
Yes, yeah. And you'll see it's, well, it first came to the public's attention in Maine and around the Fairfield area. And it's gotten into the water systems and also into the food chain, where they put out an advisory, not that if you harvest a deer in that area, not to consume the meat. It is now becoming a required testing that's to be done for all public water supplies. So,
All right. Any other questions for facilities? HCTC?
We met, and Amy, the director, is in the midst of visiting the different high schools in Hancock County to share with the students of what HCTC has to offer. She gave us an update on the budget. They would like to hire 2 new teachers, 1 for cybersecurity and 1 for special ed. She shared with us the nursing pathway with EMCC and Northern Light. It's exciting for the kids that are in the nursing program. The biomedical class received $1,000 of equipment, which will allow them to do things that they would not normally be able to do, which is exciting. And she has some money and is trying to decide the best way to spend it on middle school. Whether we're gonna have a free summer Saturday camp or career exploration, but she's got money and now things have opened up better that we can do something with middle school students. And exciting news that 2 students have been accepted. I don't think she ever really said who they were or where they were from. I don't have it in my notes anywhere, but they are going to be going and residing for 6 weeks at Vanderbilt University and be involved there to conducting biomedical research. So that's amazing. That's pretty exciting. And a lot of the other schools that law enforcement, diesel, they've been able to take some field trips and have speakers come in. So that has opened up more for HCTC. So things are looking good down there. We'll know better in another month or so what the enrollment's going to look like for next year.
Any questions regarding HCTC? Did we have any ad hoc? No, we did not. All right. We have no old business. Under new business, we've got resignations and retirements.
yep, you have 3 retirement, 1 resignation, all of them under the support personnel category. Retirement, Doris Daly, Miles Lane Administrative Secretary. Retirement, Kim Locker, Miles Lane School Jewett, Librarian Ed Tech. And Jean Sargent, Retirement, Administrative Assistant Secretary of Special Ed Programming. And Terry Hollowell is an Ed Tech 3 who is resigning her position.
Look for a motion.
I move that we accept the 3 retirements and the 1 resignation as a block.
Second?
And could I add that we add
With regret, yes.
For the resignation,
For the retirements. Yeah, long time people.
Yes, very, very solid people. So we'll put that
I think
there.
Doris Daly registered me for school.
She's gonna be thrilled to know you.
all those in favor of the motion? And that is unanimous. Thank you.
Wow.
Next, we have nominations.
I do have nominations. I have 2 support personnel, Kent Clark, custodian, and Annalisa Collier, special ed tech. Under coaches, we have recommendations for Cody Davis, middle school baseball coach, with a volunteer of Anthony Hamlin for that same program. Kaylee Chafee for softball coach, and volunteer of Michelle Grindle, and Maddie Hamlin, BMS track coach. George Watkins, BMS assistant track coach. Volunteers for the high school baseball program, Rob Wadley and Bradley Smith.
Well, I move that we accept these nominations as a block.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Next, we have discussion and possible action by the board to authorize the superintendent of schools to enter into a net energy billing credit agreement with Ameresco.
So I provided you the actual agreement as well as the notes that came from Arga Dixon, our lawyer. So what this is we would, if you support this and agree to move forward, we will enter into an agreement with Ameresco to purchase credits, tax credit, energy billing credits from them, and their project is scheduled to be started here in Bucksport. It's actually within the municipality of the RSU, so that's great. The term of the contract is for 20 years. It's very rare that you find any of these that go less than that because of the investors required for securing their investment. All right, we would start the net energy billing credits. Probably not going to see that before December 31, 22. They're supposed to get up and get working on that, okay? There are some places within the contract that we do have outs. Obviously, if they do not meet the obligation of getting the solar farm built, that's a credit. If it's operating at less than 50% of its output over 12 consecutive months, and you can see this in the handout I gave to you. So there are some outs for us, so that gives us some security. But the upshot is that we would receive a 24% reduction in our utility bill. And for our utility bills, that's for our medium use buildings, which would be all 4 of our school buildings fall underneath medium use. So as we look at a 40% increase in the cost of electricity, if we can offset the total cost by 24%, that's a pretty good investment that's going to help pay off over those 20 years. So I know when we discussed it at the facilities committee and we had a discussion here at the board, concern was for the duration. However, that is consistent in the industry, and this does provide us a way for us to help mitigate the cost of the energy, electricity. So. Any questions anybody might have?
So she looked into the central office and that is not a
Because we're
part
a
of it?
small use, we looked at the central office and also the bus garage.
Oh, yes, I remember.
Because we don't qualify for medium use. So
Okay.
Even the bus garage.
even the bus garage does not.
And there had been a question about the certainty of these energy credits
Mhm.
that's been shored up.
Everything that we're aware of, that's going through and being approved. And, if they fail to do that, then that's an out for the contract. So
Any other questions from the?
Is that 24% during its most active periods, or is that averaged around our year-round expected output?
that's year round. That's 24% off our billing. Yeah.
Abby?
Now, it doesn't seem like there is, but I just want to ask, is there something that is required of us beyond initially signing this? Like something that, say, if you do retire someday, that we might have to be aware of?
No.
I'm just not convinced it's
I
happening.
promise the
but-
contract will be left behind, okay?
Okay. But,
Nothing you
because
don't
I know
already
with the buses, we gotta have a plan,
No.
so, all right.
Or you could stay on 20.
No.
Yeah,
No.
20 years.
No, you don't want me for 20 more years. Go ahead. I don't know how you stand me now. No. So what we're gonna need is, there is a motion there. You don't have to read the whole motion, Scott.
Okay, well, I had written that down, I'm thinking, wow, that is, can I just say that I move that we accept, we authorize you to enter into an agreement with Amoresco? You want me to read? Well, I
See
think.
that top sentence?
One that says motion.
Yeah, well, that's what I wrote down, because I saw that in the thing. Well, I move the vote entitled, vote to authorize the purchase of net energy billing credits be adopted in form presented to this meeting.
Second? There you go.
Oops.
We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. That was an interesting process, and I wanted to walk through this.
I have to admit, I did not read the entire,
You didn't?
no.
Captivating reading.
I kind of am trusting that you and the lawyer know what's, in the- because that was what, 40 pages?
Yes.
Interesting reading.
Perfect. All right, I'll let them know that we'll move forward. All right.
Next, we have a presentation by Mr. West and Bucksport Middle School staff in regard to the draft plan for the All-Stars Applied Learning Lab Associated RREV grant, which stands for Rethinking Responsive Education Venture.
Yes, thank you. So I hope everyone had a chance to look at our vision for what is ultimately, hopefully going to be a Rethinking Responsive Educational Venture grant. This grew out of the STARS program, which I've talked about several times to this board, that we started this fall. That was a result of innovative education grant that we received about a year ago. And as that group is, as the group of teachers, one of whom, Hannah Bailey, is here, but there's a couple other teachers, and they've been working with the kids this year, really seeing a lot of positive outcomes from that program. And so we started talking about, if we see these results with STARS, are there ways that we can expand that to other students and other teachers in the school? The ultimate result of that, as Abby mentioned, is that the county, one of which has already been received by the high school last month for their one of the things you have to do if you're going to apply for this grant is you need a team of educators who take a graduate level course in design thinking and educational innovation. And so our group has been meeting since January, taking this course through Thomas College. And what we really wanted to do, what we entered into, was a challenge of how can we take the successes of the STARS program and continue to focus on a population of students that is maybe a little bit disconnected from school as a result of the pandemic, but also look at, is there a way that every student could have an experience similar to that? And then we also looked at our gifted and talented program and tried to think about, are there ways that we can really enhance and expand, especially our academic gifted and talented programming. We've got some really strong, especially in the performing arts, we have a lot of really strong activities already underway. So we're trying to think about how we could maybe expand that GT programming. And what we came up with after 3 months of doing research, we had the dean of the UMaine College of Education, who happens to have written a book on, actually the book, on successful practices for early adolescent education. And she's recently been hired as the dean at the University of Maine. So she came and met with Mr. Boothby and Dr. Bollier and myself. And on our way out the door, she said, if there's anything I can do to help, I said, well, sure there is. Why don't you come to this meeting we're having next week and help us think about how we could develop this program. So after doing research, a lot of meetings, a lot of designing, brainstorming, trying to think about what the best approach was. Those 4 pages that you have is what we're proposing. So STARS stands for Students Taking Alternative Routes to Success. We want to push that out to everyone. So now we're using the phrase All Stars. And that is going to be made possible by an applied learning lab. So the all is applied learning lab, which will be a rather large greenhouse structure out by the outdoor classroom that was recently constructed. Abby is an excellent assistant presenter. And it'll be roughly made up of 3 zones. So there'll be a kind of like a traditional greenhouse space with some beds to grow things. We've investigated aquaponics, which is a system in which fish and plants are in a symbiotic relationship. The fish extra feeds the plants with nutrients, and the plants help clean that water so that the fish have clean water. And it also results in plants that are more productive and also more in a more compact space than they would be otherwise. We're picturing a sort of flexible makerspace area in this applied learning lab, and then we're also picturing a kitchen space with the idea that all of those things can go together. You know, that when students do things like grow food in a garden, it's great to be able to cook it into something that they can eat right away. There's nothing wrong with eating a carrot plain, but also sometimes it's helpful to cook that because a lot of kids don't have experiences growing things, cooking things, you know, access to nutritious recipes, that sort of thing. And so we're proposing that space, and the goal is not to have it be a separate space that like kids don't go to class and they go in the garden and that's what they're doing. It's actually intended as a way to help enrich and expand through sort of hands-on learning all of the curriculum and all of the promotion standards that we currently have. So we're not talking about a different program, a different curriculum. You know, we're not, the math program that we just bought, we're not saying we're not going to do that anymore. What we're saying is that when you take math, you need to learn fractions. And sometimes that's easy to learn. I think for a lot of kids, that's not easy to learn. And that it could be beneficial at times if we have to learn fractions. Maybe we go out into the applied learning lab and either, you know, we have this 30-foot long raised bed in the greenhouse. Carrots need to be spaced this far apart. You know, how many rows of carrots can we fit in there? Can we fit full rows? Are there partial rows left over? What do you do with that? You know, I know that, for example, in math class this year, all of our classes started with surface area and volume. That's the first unit in the new math program. So instead of measuring circles and cubes that are drawn on a worksheet or in your math workbook, can the kids go out there and measure big tanks of fish that are part of the aquaponics unit? Can they, if they have to figure out the perimeter of something, can they actually go out and measure that and use that as a way to sort of build that understanding and learning that is part of our curriculum already? So it's not about doing something new. It's about a different way to reach kids, to help make it kind of concrete and real, take that abstract, and really help drive it home for kids, and also give them an opportunity to do it in a way that is fun and exciting to them, that makes them want to continue doing that and learning more about it. In that packet, the apple pie example is a great little vignette about, you know, the ways that you can take the existing curriculum and work them into something that is hands-on, and it's not like a course that you take. You know, this is not like HCTC where if you want to go into culinary, you go to Ellsworth for half your day and do that. It's more like, we need to learn fractions this week. We're going to spend a couple lessons going and doing this, and then we're going to be right back in the classroom doing a lot of the things that we normally do anyway. So it's a space to enable more hands-on experiential learning for all kids, for all teachers. The STARS program can fill the role of sort of some of the stewardship of this. You know, gardens have to be weeded, they have to be watered, fish have to be fed, dishes have to be washed. So sort of that continued ownership and stewardship of the space that's already existing with their outdoor classroom, which by the way is going to be completed soon. We're just waiting for the weather to get warm enough to put a clear coat on the furniture, and then you're all going to be invited to an open house, hopefully before April vacation, but it really depends on when the temperature gets high enough. And then we also, for our gifted and talented program, if anyone's familiar, like we just talked about solar power, we envision this being as off the grid as possible. We'd like to have, solar panels on the roof of our outdoor classroom. If any companies that have an educational interest in their recent business ventures in the community want to help set us up with solar panels, we would certainly not
Will
say
you
no
be
to that.
selling the credits?
We're gonna use them.
You're gonna consume
Those
credit.
aquaponic pumps are gonna take a lot of,
That's
yeah,
true,
that
that's
40%, yeah. No,
That conversation is already starting with them, Roscoe.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So if Mr. Jackson is watching this,
Yeah.
we'll have that conversation to completion
Wonderful.
here.
but that's, there's a lot of engineering that needs to go into, how do you heat this space efficiently? How do you, like those aquaponic systems, they're very finely tuned systems. You can't just throw a bunch of fish in and a bunch of plants and expect that it's all gonna work. If we want it to be sort of sustainable off the grid, there's a lot of research, engineering, science, math, that I think would make a fantastic basis of a GP program.
Are you guys gonna eat the fish?
Yeah. Why
Yeah,
why
why
not?
not?
A lot
It's
of,
good.
yeah, I mean, a lot of people, kind of the baseline fish is tilapia, which, makes great fish tacos and other things.
It does, yeah. it's-
Other folks that have aquaponic systems, they also do things like, kind of sad, but like the fish die at some point, right?
Got it,
Um,
compost.
Turn it into fish oil, which is actually really good for people's gardens, and that's something that can be sold at farmers markets or other places, and that kind, it's like that entrepreneurial thing. In that write-up, it mentioned aquaponic tonic, which is like the nutrient-rich water that you can siphon off the aquaponic system, and if you, put it in a milk jug and take it to the farmers market, people that have houseplants are more than happy to pay for that because it makes their houseplants do really great things. But the question is, how much do you charge for it? How do you know how much to
Option it
take
off.
off? Yeah, you
Yeah,
can't take all the
pull it
water
off.
out because then the plants don't have enough nutrients.
And the fish don't
That's
have
good,
enough water.
Exactly. So, like all that, it seems easy, but it's not. And engaging kids in that thinking is actually really rich, integrated, interdisciplinary thinking. Most of us, Mr. Foster might be the exception in accounting. You do kind of do math a lot, right? Yeah, but most folks in the real world, like your job isn't social studies, right? Your job is to do complex projects that pull in all the different content areas. And that's what this program is doing, is giving kids a chance to, here's a real world problem. We visited Jonesport Beals High School the other day. They have a greenhouse aquaponics unit. 100 fish have died,
Yeah.
right? That's a real world problem. There's no book that like, when 100 fish die, you do this. The teacher and the students have to figure out what's the problem. What are some different ways that we can fix it? If we try this, what are some of the, the pros and the cons? You try it, you see how it works. If it works, you keep doing it. If it doesn't, you have to go to plan B. So that's kind of like that, that critical thinking, real world application that we're hoping to provide to all of our kids, because it's so beneficial. Sort of those life and career skills that Aspire talks about, that like you can't really teach them out of a book, right? You need to teach them through those real world experiences. So though that's the proposal that's before you. We shared it at the curriculum steering committee last week. We're going to share it with the full teaching staff on Friday at the workshop day. If we get your blessing, we're going to submit it as a REV grant proposal by the end of this month. They would let us know next month. We would get funds May 1st that have to be expended by June 30th, 2023. So that whole plan has to be completed in like 14 months. So the document you have is sort of like the vision of what it is. There's some supporting documentation that's kind of boring and I didn't share, but there is a pretty detailed implementation plan. There's a curriculum development and PD plan. There's a budget. So we feel pretty confident that we've thought through a lot of the things we should think through. We're not thinking, oh, we're just going to get this and then great. How do you get kids to use it? How do you get teachers to use it? We've put some thought into that. We've reached out to the full staff at different times, taken that information back. So we're very excited about it. We hope you all are Also, I'm pretty confident that the Department of Education will be excited about it. So that's our proposal. I'm happy to answer any questions and, any feedback you guys have.
Well, I'd just like to say to you that any chance that there is to get a student to understand the application of what they're trying to learn really makes a major difference. If you are sitting there and you are doing algebra, why in God's name am I doing this? Is always the question.
Yep.
And that can be for any subject, really. But oftentimes it does hit math. And I know from my own children, what worked the best was when they realized, well, I would like to do this. And I could show them how what they were doing was needed to be able to do what they wanted to do. And so, the middle school age, usually you don't have a clue of what you'd like to do. But if you're doing something and it seems kind of fun, which this sounds like this would be enjoyable, and you say, oh, there's a use for this thing that I'm doing in this class, instead of just, this is some painful exercise that I've got to do tonight to make this go away so that I don't have my mother screaming at me, why haven't I done my homework? Why is this teacher telling me my assignment's 2 weeks late? Hey, I'm all for it. I think this is a good idea.
I agree. I was thinking throughout that whole presentation, how many times in school did I ask, how am I even going to use this in the real world? And it was stuff that I use.
I think the thing I'm most excited about is the fact that when you're in an environment like that, where you've got the running of water, you've got the fresh air from the plants, your fingers are in the dirt, and you're in the sunshine, and it just gives an inner sense of peace and a level of enjoyment that you cannot find in a traditional classroom. So I'm kind of excited. This sounds like a lot of fun.
It connects you with the real world.
Yeah.
Well, I even used the example in our meeting that, when I was a kid in junior high, we had a home ec and we had shop class still. And, learning how to measure things in home ec, like it made numbers real. And I think I developed a really good relationship with numbers because of that. Kids do really poorly, especially that age, with abstract and theory, because they needed that application. And I can still remember that as being, and I'm not a particularly great cook, but I do know my numbers.
I learned fractions in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Mechanics with wrenches and everything. I
Yeah.
know if I have to, I grab 5 or 6 sizes, because I don't know which one it's gonna be. And my son can just look at something and say, oh yeah, that's a 7/16.
Well, if I can't find the wrench, I know it's a 10 millimeter.
One of the things I'm very excited about is the leadership that came from the teachers. Wonderful leadership from the teachers, the commitment and investment they've already made taking that course. This is an opportunity to provide a very unique and positive educational experience
To all students,
to all students. That's
which is
absolutely correct.
one thing that we're very committed to doing is serving all our students.
So we got 2 of our teachers over there, but there's 5 more of them that have been working hard on this. I've had a couple of pictures up in my office, and teachers who are not part of the team, they walk in and like, is that what you guys are always meeting about? I'm like, yeah. You go, that's pretty cool, actually. So, I think they're jealous that they didn't get to take the
So
course
what's
with
the
us.
value of what you're going after for the grant here?
$250,000, which 2/3 of that has to go directly to student, how do they phrase it? Student experience or something like that. So that's essentially the facility, right? And so most of that over 80% of it is going to go into the facility with a very healthy cushion for things like, how do we engineer it so that we're not just like pumping heat into the January winter night in a greenhouse, right? Like we want it to be efficient and sustainable, and not 5 years from now when the grant is done, this gigantic suck on the budget, that it's a great program, but it's so expensive. So we've tried to think about different ways and are looking into how we can make it as sustainable as possible going forward. And then some of that, the other 20% really is a lot of work with teachers around PD, creating some stipended positions called experiential learning guides, whose goal is to kind of reach out to the rest of the staff and say, hey, what are you teaching next month? Have you ever considered doing that this way in this facility? And if you haven't, would you like me to help you figure out how to do it? To kind of, make it so that everyone feels like they can come in and use it and feels comfortable and supported.
So what we're looking for is, we're looking for a motion to give Todd the thumbs up to continue with his team to get this application submitted.
I'll make a motion to move forward with the draft plan for the All Stars Applied Learning Lab and the associated REB grant.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you.
How do you guys like your tilapia? Tacos, fish burgers.
Someone else's sauce on the side.
Yeah, it's awesome side. Thank you both. Greatly appreciated. This is exciting.
All right. Next, we have discussion and consideration of requesting bids to complete the middle school athletic field improvement.
So we've been talking about this now, Peter's got what, 3 years?
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, on our middle school athletic fields have just degraded to a point where we don't even feel safe putting kids out there. And matter of fact, last spring, we took kids off that and they played baseball and softball at alternative sites. And this fall, we did football and soccer on alternative sites. That's all well and good, but we have an asset up there that needs to be revitalized. And so we've been working on this. We have had, what I have in front of me is the second engineering study. The first one that was brought forward to us about 14 months ago came through with a price tag of over $900,000. And that was well beyond what was reasonable. We went back out and we tried again with a different firm. And we asked them to look at some alternative ways to approach this. And they come back with an outstanding plan, which is the first year, it's a 5-year plan. The first year is where the vast majority of the work is going to take place. It's going to include adding drainage appropriately there. It's augmenting the soil, not only getting the fertilization and the chemistry right, but also bringing the field up to grade with topsoil and everything, reseeding. Our plan does include integration of a integrated watering system built into this. And we looked at that relative to making a water wheel manual and everything. What we're going to save in labor and efficiency is going to make up for itself over a few years. So the facilities committee was very supportive of moving forward with that. We're going to go back. Part of this would be going out and taking, there's already drainage ditches built around an entire field. The actual engineering of it originally was done very well. The part that didn't go well is they didn't use topsoil to any degree, right? And when you put a new field on there, you should really have minimum 4 to 6 inches of good topsoil. We don't, and we've got examples. They did digs of that, did soil tests. It's just not there. And that's why we're getting clumping of grass. We've got bare spots, and it's poor. Our goal is to be able to, the baseball and softball fields, their infield mix is really gravel. It's not an infield mix, it's sand and stone. And that'll be part of this project, includes turning that back into a true infield mix. And that's the big part of year 1. And years 2 through 5 would be coming back and doing the augmentation, adding a little bit more topsoil this year, overseeding, making sure it's fertilized properly, make sure the chemistry's there where it needs to be, and continuing that over 4 more years. So with the idea that it's going to be another year off the field while we do this, get this to grow, but looking in the fall of '23, hopefully being able to use that again, and also the spring of '24, and then working on it through the summers as we go from there. The price tag for this is, I believe, $279,000. I shared that in your packet. You have the cost breakout. So what we're looking to do is looking to get approval from the board to go out for bid. We've got all our bidding documents all complete. We've done the whole engineering and bid packet. Go out to bid, do invitation of bid with contractors to do the work, pending approval by the public to expend capital reserve money for up to $279,000.
Andy said a question for you.
Yes.
So this is a 5-year plan. At the end of 5 years, is there no other maintenance required that we can't handle?
Right. It's going to be, we're going to handle basically everything after those 5 years. But what years 2 through 5 would be is bringing in a company that actually specializes in sports fields. And we hire one already that does aeration and overseeding for us on our other fields. But we've never had it done up there. So,
Okay.
Seeing as that's the only fields that we own.
and right, and that's technically the only fields that the RSU owns are the fields at the middle school. All the other ones we maintain are owned by the town of Bucksport. So it's a unique relationship, but
I was actually going to ask you that. Do we need to get approval from the town? But these are ones that we own.
these are ours.
Okay.
It's, you're in control.
Oh,
You make the
man.
decision based on that.
We don't go first.
Tavern, football field?
Oh, yeah.
Softball.
Everything. But
I knew the baseball field.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, basically, if you walk off our parking lots, that's all, we don't own anything after that.
You don't have the tennis courts, right?
No, we don't own the tennis courts either.
Well, that's right.
So, yeah, so Abby, what it is, and the idea is we would use the year 2 through 5, we would put that money in the regular budget. So not look at capital reserve.
Sure.
So I guess, questions about the project. I know we've been talking about this for quite some time.
I think the facilities committee is quite excited about what this engineering firm came up with. It kind of it made sense.
A lot of common sense in this.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is great.
Do we have a new wetlands that the ducks are going to go to?
We're going to encourage the ducks to go to a different place in the spring. It's
The
gonna be-
pond up beyond.
Yeah, there are other ponds out there. I mean, there's some nice ponds right in the woods. But it's not like our pond.
I got a flock of mallards, they'll join their family.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But unless they're going to play left field for us, we need them off the field.
More ducks I have in my pond.
So is there any questions at all about this? I know, Scott and Peter, Dan was brought in on this, are quite familiar with the project, and we've run it around a number of times.
But it's just topsoil. We don't need to put drainage or.
Oh, no, drainage is included.
You are putting
Oh, yeah.
Irrigation.
Drainage, irrigation, and topsoil and overseed, and they're gonna aerate. They'll do shadow tine aeration and get down somewhere between 7 and 9 inches to really break up the soil and get nutrients down.
And the irrigation is pretty high tech, isn't it, Jim?
Irrigation is all computerized. You can control it. It can be set for how moist it is. So if the ground is at a certain level of moisture, we won't irrigate.
If it rains, it'll adjust to that.
And no manpower.
And
Or minimal.
minimal manpower.
More of this.
Yeah. And we've had, we put in the irrigation in the football field, and that was over 10 years ago. It doesn't seem possible it's that long ago. And that's worked very well for us for a decade. So I'm not scared of technology. That doesn't concern me. It's just, so if, what we're looking forward to is to move forward with going out to bid. Because what we want to do is we want to be able to have a company ready to go. So at the district budget meeting We will bring this up as an agenda item, look for the public's approval of that project. And because anytime we expend capital reserve money, we have to have the voter approval. So unless we have a special election, this is the only time we're gonna get that. So we need to do that, and then the budget validation process, if the budget is supported by the public, then we can go bam, right off the bat. And we can even award the project pending positive outcome of both votes. But it'd be nice to get this out, get out in front of it. We've got contractors locally that we can hand these packages to, invite them to bid, and go from there.
Call for motion.
I move that we continue our process of requesting bids to complete the middle school athletic field improvements.
Second?
Motion and second, all those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you.
There's a sense for you for that stuff after how many years of this?
Well, yeah, and the fields, they were an afterthought.
If anybody wants to look, I do have a bid packet here. If you just want to take a quick look after the meeting, you're welcome. Just, you can leave it intact so I can hand it out to the folks.
Next, we have discussion and consideration of updated RSU 25 COVID operating procedures.
So, as you know, we've a mask optional, and that's been embraced by a large number of people. And I do appreciate the fact that we have some people who have chosen still to mask, and that has not been an issue. So that is good. But now that we've had the change in direction from the federal CDC, and Maine CDC has actually relaxed their stance, I do have some recommendations for where I think our plan should be adjusted to. And I shared with you in my report, I've had this conversation with administrators. I did meet with our safety committee that we have that's made up of teachers to get their feedback. So I've shared it with you in a bullet point, and I'll read it out so people can who are here that don't have this document can understand. So my recommendations are as follows: continue mask optional standards through the remainder of the school year. Continue the requirement for positive COVID cases to quarantine for the 10 days with the option to return on day 6 if no symptoms are present. But the standard for that is they will need to mask for days 6 through 10. Continue to provide remote access to classes for students who are medically required to be absent for an extended period of time. And again, I'm not restricting that to just COVID because, we do have kids who do get sick for other reasons too, okay? Continue the expectation for daily self-health checks for all student, staff, and visitors. Continue pool testing through the month of May. However, remove the requirement for testing as an expectation for extracurricular participation. Continue to monitor reported COVID cases and provide daily communications via email notice produced by the central office. Continue daily cleaning and sanitizing the school by the custodial staff. Continue daily cleaning and sanitization of the buses by the drivers. Continue encouraging frequent hand washing and sanitizing at all locations. Maintaining distance as a practical matter with a review of cafeteria seating after April vacation. One of the requests I got from the administrators is let's just not go whole hog and go right back to the gang tables. Let's give it a couple of weeks. And came up with the idea of let's see how we do up till April vacation and then go from there. Okay. Continue to support, encourage vaccination and boosting of vaccinations in partnership with Bucksport Regional Health Center. Return to in-person activities such as step-up nights, Title I activity nights, parent-teacher conferences, etc. Return to chaperone participation on field trips after April vacation. Again, that's a direct request of administration because we do training for our chaperones, and so we're going to need some time to get that in place and get people running through that. Okay, and allow access to RSU 25 facilities by outside entities following our established policy. So that's my recommendation of where we should be moving towards. Certainly answer any questions or clarifications maybe.
And there's still the expectation that if we go to a venue and the venue has more restrictions than what we do, then we would honored whatever their
we're required
request
to
is.
follow their venue requirements. And that, you may see that evidence, like we went down, we took a group down to Maine Maritime, and they were required to mask for that presentation. The robotics, for an example, for their competition at Thomas College, they were required to mask there.
And they couldn't eat in the venue.
No,
That was a major issue,
Yeah.
was they couldn't eat or drink in the venue. And it was really quite painful, I guess.
right? Yeah. But, and who knows where we're gonna be, because I know robotics is traveling out of state, maybe
Yeah.
different rules, regulations there, but kind of what we've used is if, when you went to grandma's house, it was always take your shoes off at the door. So we will follow the rules of the house.
Any other questions for Jim on Jim's proposal?
Well, I move that we accept the revised COVID operational plan presented.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Perfect.
I will get those uploaded onto the website by the end of the week. Move forward. Okay. I will also send out a communication. I think people are probably tired of my letters, but I'll send out another one. Go from there. Do anybody still read those letters?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I look forward to them, actually. I'm gonna miss them when they're gone.
Oh, well, they move something else I can go up.
The new era of transparency.
Exactly. Yeah.
I did miss one day and I apologize, but I did a 2-for-1 the next day, so,
I know.
so go from there. All right.
Next, we have first reading of policy.
Yep, you have two policies we brought forward to you. JL Student Wellness, this is an outgrowth of the review that we had done by the Department of Education. Our previous student wellness program basically had the same information, but it wasn't formatted the way they wanted to see it. So we revised it and went with a model program. It didn't change much at all, but
A
go
little
from
more
there.
in depth in different
A
places.
little more in depth.
verbiage.
Yeah. One of the things that I'll be talking to Abby about in her committee, the curriculum committee, that's going to be a perfect place to integrate our advisory panel for this wellness program. So,
Great.
because the same makeup of folks you have on your curriculum committee mirrors what's expected of the advisory. So a couple of times a year, we'll make it an agenda item, bring it on board, have conversations.
Great.
All righty.
Let's do it.
And GBP-R, Earned Paid Leave Administrative Procedure. As an outgrowth through negotiations, Maine passed a law for earned paid leave. What they didn't consider was the fact that we already had leave built into our collective bargaining agreements. So we had to integrate the law relative to our past practice. And so we needed to tweak the language just slightly. It was only one sentence, but that's what we have for you for first reading.
It was just basically to clarify that a workday consists of 8 hours.
Right.
So that, because they're able to take their time in hourly increments. So therefore, it just defines that if you take a day, it's 8 hours, it's not 10 hours, it's not 7 hours. And so
Just clarify.
it was just clarification for that.
I do have a recommendation is that we, on the changes, if they could be in bold or italicized so that we could see what the changes
I think
were.
on the website, it's in red.
It's in red on the
I
website.
don't go to the website. I read.
Oh, in our packet, it's in
What's a
red.
website?
Yeah, it's there in red, but, help them with that.
Help me. What if I'm called?
Yeah, we'll work with you.
Tom, you're gonna have to show me how to do this on the computer.
Oh, I'm good at math, but not
I
at.
think you picked the wrong person.
We have a couple of dinosaurs here.
This is the person that still refuses to touch a cell phone. You may want to find something.
But yes, Scott, I do appreciate it. That's why we do, typically what we do in the policy committee, we'll do a strike through, replace it, it's red.
You know, I did read it on the computer and I didn't,
Yeah, it is.
I didn't see it.
It's only part of one sentence. It's about 6 words. So,
After reading his report, then go, my eyes are doing.
I get it. Oh, I get it.
Well, I move that we accept the first reading as presented. First readings.
I actually have a question will
Oh, yes.
go on it. You know, the feds and the state like to take away as much power as they can from school boards,
Yes.
dictate out all of this stuff. But I see, and I like the wording, but I want to make sure that it's not that I'm imagining that I like the wording and it doesn't really mean what I'm imagining it to be. But under foods and beverages for celebrations and rewards, we're giving, although the intent of the refreshment service at parties and celebrations during the school day, whether supplied by parents or staff, will meet the Smart Stack standards. It doesn't say must.
That's correct. It does not say must.
All right. So if a caring mother happens to bring in
A fruit punch.
a fruit punch, cupcakes, something that normally occurs, we won't, you know, become the food Nazis.
That is not how we will apply it. We will apply it with common sense. It's not like we have Valentine's Day every day of the school year, but somebody have 6 ounces of punch and a sugar cookie with pink frosting on it. It's not the end of the world. Okay?
Something tells me that that won't create obesity in our children. It might, however, create a sugar rush. But that's an ed tech's problem.
That's. Leave that to always do your parties at the end of the day. That's exactly right. And why do you do it at the end of the day? 2 reasons. Number one, it doesn't interfere with lunch, because that's the biggest thing. And number 2, when you're done, you load them on the bus and you send them off, and then mom and dad can deal with that. So, but again, we're trying to put common sense into these rules. And it's not that we're changing the language. This is actually the language that was presented to us. But they know from the feedback they've gotten in the field that, you know what, you still need to enjoy some opportunities. And, you know, not everybody embraces kale as a snack for the holiday party. So, yeah.
I don't think that's ever going to happen.
You know,
Baked kale's not bad.
So you said.
they've actually done that as part of our.
And that's why we've done it, because they did it at school.
Oh, well, I'm still more for popcorn and kale, but that's all right.
Well, I mean, let's not get crazy, but
We do have a motion.
Have a motion, need a second.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion? All right, that is unanimous.
Thank you.
Grow that kale in the greenhouse.
Yeah, we can grow kale in the greenhouse, yes.
yeah.
And then do a survey of how many are gonna eat it.
Todd's shaking his head, no, I don't know if he's answered your.
Carrots are plenty.
Just gotta try it once.
Jim will be getting paid.
It could be first.
All right.
Reports.
I drank with my.
Put your agenda buried in.
Buried it in with student wellness.
Oh, boy.
All right. Now we have administrator and principal reports. And first up is Evan.
I was just thanking Abigail for doing such a great job with the curriculum committee update. We had a wonderful full meeting last week. A couple of things I just wanted to highlight again that she mentioned as on the grants update. We did receive last week officially the REV grant that we have been talking to previously 2 months ago for the high school. And that one was awarded last Tuesday with official press conference in Augusta. And Josh did a great job representing our district and getting an overview for that grant. And just want to let you know, we're very excited because we're one of only 2 districts in the entire state that's working on 2 grants for the REV grants. And they have, we're the only ones in Hancock County. They've given us the go-ahead to do that. So it's very exciting to be a part of that process. So, and another grant we're working on, we find out, hopefully, the original timeline is this Thursday, if we get invited to go to round 2 for what is called a Catalyst grant. And we're really looking at funding for that implementing the electronic portfolio that we've been talking about for a few years, and personal learning plans with students for them to really start doing, actually documenting the great activities that the Aspire program you're going to be hearing about tonight. They have students doing all the way down through kindergarten. We need to figure out a way to document that for students so that information can follow them throughout their schooling career. So we'll hopefully have that information by the end of this week. So I just want to point out a couple of those. And the other thing at the end of my report, I tried to put in highlights in yellow when you read through it, new activities. Last Wednesday, we got the go-ahead that we wouldn't be wearing masks. We also got the go-ahead to start planning those traditional year-end activities we haven't been able to do the last couple of years. So you're going to hear more about the middle school family night from Jen when she does it, but that's March 30th. So if you're interested, I want that on your calendar. We also have put together a gifted and talented recital that's coming up April 27th. And I'm very excited because our office is able to do an academic banquet again for the first time in 2 years. So be sure to put on your calendars, May 22nd. It's a Sunday night, and we do that intentionally here because spring is very busy with spring sports at the middle school and high school level. And we never can find a date that doesn't conflict with something. So we went probably 3 or 4 years ago to doing it on Sunday night, and it proved to be very successful and well attended, and we've already secured our keynote speaker for it. So we are getting ready for that. So the only thing left is to be sure you all put that on your calendar, because you'll be getting invitations, but I know how busy calendars get, and I wanted to be sure you had that. And also yesterday afternoon, the Title I team at the Miles Lane School decided to go ahead and do a scaled down version of a family night like we've always done. So you'll be getting more information. That'll be May 5th, another Thursday evening, 5:30 to 7 o'clock. So I'm going to work hard. As soon as we hear all these dates, I'll get that to you so you can keep putting them on your calendars, because your calendars are going to fill up between the 3 different levels here pretty quick. So that's why some of these events were highlighted in yellow, because they were new since we last talked, and I want to be sure that they got on your calendar. So did you have any questions of my report? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Andrea.
Folks have my board minutes, and we're pretty much doing our regular thing this time of year. We the alternative assessment windows have opened. We've got our administrators of the test trained. We've got the names in. There even have been some students testing at this point. We are looking at the professional development coming up with the teachers. We're going to review our procedures, timeline, look at progress reports, the way we're reporting out now. Special education students tend to, right now we're doing numerical codes, which is like partially meets, met the goal. We're looking for something that really reflects the child's present level and the accuracy rate of the goal that they're completing. So we're looking at some of those pieces. We're going to discuss different strategies that different special education teachers are looking for, some time management, how they're prepping for meetings. We're showing them and giving them templates. So we're working down through those pieces. We're already looking at student profiles, learning profiles, and groupings within grade levels to see what we're going to do and need to do to support the kids next year. So that's how much we're at this year.
Any questions for Andrea? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Is Josh here?
Josh is not. Josh is homesick.
We'll have Todd.
Well, I gave the bulk of my report already, and I don't want to steal Jen's thunder, just that there's some cool Aspire activities going on at the middle school. And I happened to meet Jordan in the hallway this afternoon, and we came up with another one. So, yeah, for April.
We never run out of
Yeah,
ideas.
no, lots of good ideas. We also have some good activities coming up at our in-service day on Friday. We're really focusing on curriculum and ELA, math, and the new life and career readiness standards that have come out from the DOE. And then also starting that book study that I talked about last month around poverty responsive structures and how we can support students and families who might be experiencing poverty who are in our school. Excuse me. And then we have some very energetic folks who might also be in the audience who have seen that the return of athletics has met the need, the return of drama, the return of music. There are still some students who don't fit neatly into any of those holes. They're not really like club kids, right? They're not, I'm going to commit to do something every day after school for 3 months, or I'm going to commit to the play 3 days a week sort of thing. But they like to do stuff, and they need opportunities to do things that are constructive when they're not in school. So a group of teachers, some of whom are over there, because they do a lot of things, are starting an outing club, which is kind of a traditional name. It's not like a go hiking club all the time. There is some hiking and outdoors activities, but it's really, it's a positive use of time outside the school day club. So there's things like jewelry making, movie night. They're going to a sugar shack this Saturday. Those sorts of activities that are just a group of students doing things that are interesting. The students might not get to do on their own. It doesn't require a huge commitment, but it's a great way to spend 3 or 4 hours on a Friday night or after school or on a Saturday, just to kind of try to think of ways that we can have all of our kids experiencing positive things. So we're excited about that. They've got some really cool activities coming up, and I think our kids will appreciate that.
Any other questions, you, Tom?
Questions?
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Next, we have Christine.
I was just telling Darcy that I should let her come do one of these.
She's the YouTube star.
She picked July, and I said no.
Not the option,
Remember, Christina, delegation.
Right, all other responsibilities,
responsibilities.
right? It's under that job description somewhere. Thank God I have her. She's great. So you have a copy of the Miles Lane and Jewett board report for this month. A couple things that we have going on right now is we are quickly cruising into the final trimester of the school year. I've talked to Jim several times where I've said, feels like this year has lasted about 3 years, but it also feels like it's going really fast. And it's a strange thing to say, but it's so true. It's just, I can't believe that we're almost into the 3rd trimester of school. So we've been doing a lot of work in our intervention structures. And you've heard me talk about this a lot this year, but it's been really important because, we are coming out of, hopefully, a pandemic. And so we have a lot of work to do. And we've been doing a lot of that this year with trying to provide our kids with as targeted interventions and instruction as we possibly can. So what we decided to do for the 3rd trimester was our math team, specifically our math intervention team, with the help of Cheryl Toby and looking at our new math program, is we've really taken a close look at 2 specific grades of kids coming into for next year. So 3rd grade and 5th grade, specifically because there's a huge jump from 2nd grade to 3rd grade in the math curriculum. And there's a huge jump from 4th to 5th. Never mind the fact that they're switching to the middle school, which is a big deal for 4th graders becoming 5th grade. So we're really taking a targeted approach to those. We will also be servicing kindergartners, 1st graders, and 3rd graders, but we are really going to focus heavily on our 2nd and 4th graders for this last trimester, knowing what they need to be successful in September and October of those big grade changes. So we've done a lot of work around that. And our teachers have embraced that, so that's been really helpful. And those new intervention groups will start after this Friday is the in-service day after this Friday because the new trimester starts next week. So we've been doing a lot of work with that. And then at the Jewett School, we've been focusing on pre-K and kindergarten pre-registrations for next year. So we're already getting that process started. Fortunately, this year we had 55 4-year-olds participate in our pre-K program, up from 39 last year. So it's still not full, like, you know, we look for 64, but that's great considering all of the pandemic issues we've had. So 55 is a wonderful group of kiddos that have already had some exposure to school. We anticipate we'll probably, I say this and then it will be bigger, but we anticipate roughly a class of 75 kindergartners for the fall. And so having 55 of them being with us for a full year is great. So we're pre-registering kids. So if you know of anyone who has a 5-year-old, someone that will be 5 on or before October 15th, please have them call the Jewett School. We'll take care of getting them pre-registered. And then we're also starting the pre-registration process for pre-K as well for 4-year-olds. So that's happening. I do want to mention, it wasn't in my report, but Jim and I have been talking about a return to kindergarten screening model like we did 3 years ago now, where we're able to, kindergarten doesn't have to do the 100, make sure I get this right.
A minimum of 170, seniors in kindergarten.
Right, so they have special.
Teach them how to line up, teach them how to line up and walk.
Teach them how to line up to come in, teach them how to line up and leave, right? Okay. So kindergarten has the 170-day requirement and not 175. And it's really helpful if we can do our screening of incoming kindergartners in June, if possible. And so we will be looking at a return. The state told us how to do it last year. We didn't have a choice. But this year, we can return to doing it in June. And so our goal will be to have the last day of kindergarten, provided there are no more snow days, right? Knock on something. But there are no more snow days, we could end kindergarten a couple of days early. So we're looking at that Wednesday, June 8th. So we can get our new kindergartners coming in. And if students have had pre-K with us, we don't have to rescreen them because pre-K does the same screening tool that we use for kindergarten. So that's 55 kids. We don't have to worry about screening. So that's great because we haven't jumped on that. So I want to make sure that I gave you that information and you understood that we would be ending kindergarten just a little bit earlier so we can do that. And then a couple other things we have going on as far as like partnering with the community. We have a return to a spring dental clinic planned, which is an amazing service that we were able to provide a couple of years ago. We haven't been able to do it for a couple of years, but our nurses have been working hard to bring that service back where parents may choose to have their child sign up for the mobile dental clinic. We're going through Mainly Teeth is the program that will be coming to do that during the week of May 9th through the 13th. So cleaning service, just kind of checking their, dental hygienists will check their teeth out and let their parents know. So parents will be able to sign their child up for that. It's pretty exciting. With the help of Allison Braley at the middle school, we will be partnering again with the Hancock County Food Drive. So Allison is really kind of taking the lead on that, but Heather Rockcliffe is going to participate in that as well, along with our 4th grade student council members. That's been a great way for us to help out the local food pantry, but also that program helps with our Friday food program that we have. We send home bags of food on Fridays with kids for parents that choose to sign up for that service. So lots of things going on. And just before, I know that we talked about Doris's retirement. That is a huge deal for me, for all of us. She's worked for us for 20.5 years. I've spent the last 10 with her. And we had one kind of final thing 1, thing 2, and Cat in the Hat event on March 8th with Doris. As you may recall, Doris and Janine are great sports as elementary secretaries. And they appeared on March 8th as thing 1 and thing 2 for their 7th time together. And I was Cat in the Hat. And we had a great time with that at the Jewett Mosley School. We avoided the high school and middle school. We spared them that day. Mr. Tripp had blocked us from coming there. So we had a great time, and our kids really remember that. Doris and Janine play thing 1 and thing 2 almost too well. So I usually have a mess to clean up after, but the kids really enjoy it. So I do want to publicly say thank you to Doris Daly for all of her years to our community and school. So she will be missed. One last thing I want to highlight, if you haven't had an opportunity in my report to watch Mrs. Dakin's Alaska video, please do. She has done another Where in the U.S. is Mrs. Dakin, and she invited some Miles Lane students to join her in that video. So if you get an opportunity, I put a link in there for you. Be sure to check that out. I think she has another one coming up, and she's traveling to California, right?
We are.
She told me I have a little cameo in the next one, so I guess I don't get out of it, but anyway, that's my report. Lots of fun things happening at the elementary level, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
So in the job description, when we post for Doris, it's gonna say participate as thing 1 or thing 2?
Thing 1.
Yeah.
Mhm. Thing 1, and they also,
Specifically
Tina and
thing
Doris
1.
call themselves aisle 1 and aisle 2 because they both have very specific responsibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it has to be a sub-caller.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of things
Right
to
in,
do.
so.
Yep, right in
Perfect.
the job description. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Kathy.
You have my report, but there's a couple of things I just wanted to highlight. We are wrapping up our tech literacy project, which was done in partnership with the Bucksport Bay Healthy Communities Coalition, the Regional Health Center, the National Digital Equity Center, and Gardner Commons and the Senior Citizens Center. And that's been a huge success. We were able to pilot cohort of seniors on fixed income and that have never been on the internet, never touched technology. And really everything is changing so fast, they have to be able to do that. Seniors in the position of having to give all of their private data just to look at their pensions, just to get online, visit with family, and this quarantine really brought that home hard for them. And it's been a complete success. We were able to fund 7 and 1 potential new volunteer. We are looking for more adult volunteers. We're in desperate need of that going forward. We did get the notice that there is a second grant coming. They're small. It'll allow us to do another 7-person cohort. But we are wrapping up the first one right now, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. But we're targeting people that they're allowed $70 a month. And every other program out there will start free, but then eventually goes to a monthly fee that is usually not less than $35, which that takes a huge chunk out, and it's just not affordable for them. And we were able to provide the tablets. They're on permanent loan. One of the things we found, if the tablets went out before that the grandkiddies usually got their hands on them. And it wasn't that they took them, but they changed the passwords and got them for gaming, and then the grandma or grandpa is sitting there going, well, I can't access it, and there's really no way to recover. So that was one of the things the person getting the tablet has to not share it with anyone. If they decide they don't want to become part of the program, they return it, but it is permanent loan. And there's volunteers to help them with that. And the biggest thing, the other programs offer processing time, doesn't allow for the slower time with arthritis and fingers to learn to do things. And our volunteer found just finding ways to turn it on when you have a lot of arthritis in your hand, how to use the buttons. We did a lot of repetitive work, and the partners that we looked and approached out there basically said, oh no, we don't work with people that have those issues. That's, we have to be able to hit numbers. And one of the things we wanted for our community is to reach out to people that needed that help and had nowhere else to go. And it's been fantastic there. They got to the point where they finally said, I think we can start weaning off the instructor and helping each other and keeping their group going so that we can start with the second group. Any questions on that? Then the only other thing I would like to highlight is March 28th, I will be meeting with the design company on our hub logo. If there's any input you'd like to have for the design, it's my favorite color, purple, is in there, so I'm happy with that. But if there's any input you'd like to have before I meet with them, this is our logo design for the hub participation for our specific site. So it will not be our program logo, but a countywide hub logo. And this is something the state's asking us to do. They're pushing more and more. Grants are now hub-wide. I think I've probably talked to, you're sick of that. But this will be something we're required to brand and market as a hub. If there's any input, anything you'd like to see in the design, please just shoot me an email, phone call. I'd love to hear it before we meet with them. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we've got Jen.
Hi, everyone. So tonight, I thought I would share with you some of the things we have going on by building. Just give you kind of an overview to have a sense of what's going on. Good news all around, but money's being spent. So we're not going to end the year with Aspire having unspent money. Nobody wants that. So we've been having a lot of interactions with individual teachers and administrators on possible uses for the remaining of the spring money. At Miles Lane this past month, been able to start having some examples of virtual visits and in-person visits. So there was a classroom that asked to have a music therapist as a career promoted. So we were able to help set that up and pay for the supplies, and as well as enhancing the supplies and making it more interactive by having the kids all have maracas. We asked the person what would it be to make this a little more engaging for the students and have something they can carry forward afterwards. So when people are making requests, we just ask, what is the plan for sustainability? Once you've had this, is there a way you can expand it? So we're trying to use resources wisely that way. The Hinckley video that I mentioned before was completed and was sent out this month. And along with it, we had a companion worksheet. I'm trying to think of the actual, what we called it. It's a think wonder, and I'm forgetting the third word. But it's this concept of having students have something to think about before they watch it, what to watch for, and as far as career focus, and then afterwards wondering about what could come next. And in this particular one, we asked them for suggestions. I know Darcy went to Alaska recently, but the kids want us to go to Peru. So if I'm gone, the kids don't want us to go to Peru and several other spots to do tours for them. So we'll see. Locally, we featured the Northeast Historic Film in the character element last month. And the latest character element video also this time featured some students, which was something that came up in steering committee as a suggestion, as well as I'm excited to be featuring a student piece this time in the Aspire newsletter, which is going to be coming out next week. Then at BMS, our goal is not to put more out there necessarily than it is to expand on what's already happening and try to enhance opportunities as they are requested. So the outing club is just getting underway. We're already looking at opportunities for what could we do to help enhance the things that they're looking to do with the students. Same, the 8th grade will be planning what they're going to do for the spring with their students, and we're looking at ways we can help support that. Virtual Career Fair, which I've mentioned to you last month, is going to be happening at the middle school. And we're supporting that with some fun incentives for students that we're purchasing locally. And as Todd mentioned, we also are having our first, well, maybe not first. We did do family night for seniors at the high school in the fall, but this is a true family night with interactive activities, kind of the way we would typically see in the past. So we're excited about that, to be able to bring an event for middle school families at the end of March. You're all welcome to come, or if you want to volunteer, let me know. But we're partnering. We knew that this year they wouldn't be able to have a traditional event where the staff usually is involved. And so we went outside and found partners who could help us with activities. So we're going to have Camden National Bank and the Buck Memorial Library and Seaboard Federal Credit Union are all participating in the event, as well as we've been working with the middle school guidance staff and the curriculum office to put this together. So it'll be a fun event with a carnival theme. It's really about careers and being prepared for life skills and financial literacy. So we hope it's fun, but also should be very educational along the way. At the high school, there have been opportunities that Jordan has been able to set up for individual students. The guidance office referred a student that was interested in restaurant work. So Jordan was able to accompany her at a job shadow at McLeod's recently. She also was able to set up a hands-on presentation from a local hospital we're not supposed to name. They were willing to come, they just weren't representing the actual facility. So they were able to visit the high school anatomy class and bring some hands-on activities there. We also are promoting virtual career fair with the high school. We had a virtual talk with some students with a police officer, also an attorney. And we continue our monthly email contest to encourage good email habits for high schoolers, as well as supporting the SAT prep that's happening right now for the juniors. And other than that, just to mention, we are trying to help also support professional development. So we are this week having a virtual scavenger hunt for teachers, and it's introducing them to the tool that we've purchased for the district to use. You've heard me talk about Goose Chase for kids. So teachers are participating this week, and they're also, so in the course of doing it, they're learning about the platform to use with their students, and they're also exploring all the Aspire resources. So we're excited about that. And we're also helping coordinate some professional development that Christina is going to host that is using some DOE content that teachers can get together and work on together in April and May. So and we have a really good response to that. So we're excited to get teachers from all levels together for some professional development coming up. And lots of local prizes and purchasing from local businesses, which not only gives us a chance to support them, but we also get a chance to engage some of the local business owners and build those relationships. So lots going on. Any questions?
Just a comment.
Yeah.
The Hinckley video, I shared that with some of my coworkers.
Yeah. Were they in it?
No, they weren't in it. But very positive. They thought it was very well done. Comments were, can't believe your school is doing this. And I don't know, I was sitting here listening to all of the different things that you're discussing, and this is great. And I think we are very, very fortunate to have this opportunity to bring this to our kids from the pre-KK right up through 12th grade with aspirations. It makes sense. It kind of dovetails into what Mr. West is talking about with his group, and its practical application and showing these kids what's out there in the world for them to do later on in life. And so thank you, Jordan, for your work. Yeah. And like I said, my coworkers looked at that video, and oftentimes people can be kind of grumpy at work. I don't know if you've experienced that with your coworkers, but they looked at that and I think they felt a sense of pride in what you were presenting, and they were like, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And so
well, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Plus, they probably do work with fiberglass in their garages. I had a hard time relating to that particular video because that is a foreign concept to me. But that's probably right up their alley.
Matt loves it. He's an engineer.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think a lot of high school kids do. Like a lot of high school kids can relate to that too.
Yeah, and I think I might have mentioned it last month, but we've already made a connection there, and they did one talk already with some students at the high school. So that's a relationship we hope to expand to and get students back down there in person the way they were in previous years. So lots of good things happening.
Plenty of opportunities there.
Yes, yeah.
Jen, if you work your magic right, you might be able to find somebody that is in the automotive industry that could introduce kids into what happens, and not only on the showroom floor, but what happens in the back with maintenance and everything.
Nice, cool. Nice.
Gentleman right behind you.
Okay.
Does that.
All right, that'd be great. Yeah, we are always looking for suggestions, and one thing we're going to do at the middle school night is ask parents when they sign in if there's a particular job or skill that they have that they would be willing to either one-on-one talk to a student or talk to a small group, so we can keep building our list of resources. Yeah.
The videos are a great way for kids to understand that, a particular business, and there's so many different subsets of skills and jobs within that business.
For sure. And not just go to Peru, they also want us to go to a lot of businesses around town.
Yeah.
And the students even asked for us to go to the middle school, which was even simple things where, yeah, we can do that and show the first graders what it looks like inside the middle school. So we have a whole list. We keep saying this summer. I don't know, it's gonna be a very busy summer. All the things we're gonna do this summer. So, anyway. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Then last but not least, Jim Moore. Is that-
We wait for the grand entrance here.
From the back, he prevails. I'll follow up with what Jen was talking about, the Aspire videos. My son loves to shovel snow. I'm hoping that carries over to a time when it's not from the grass into the driveway, but rather from the driveway out. And we happen to have a Waldo Mountains plastic paint shovel, which we've had for like 9 years. And every time I shovel, I say, gotta replace it because I can hear the cracks. I got a picture from my wife the other day, and it was him holding the handle and the rest of the shovel. And if you can picture a 6-year-old boy on the verge of crying, but not quite breaking a tear, the example doesn't get any worse. So I flew around after work and found one out in Herman, brought it home. I'm like, buddy, look, now we both have a shovels, because with my main intuition, I just had to drill out the handle and repair it, so now it's shorter, so it's his size. So he immediately acquired the new one, and I felt like I was married again. And so now we both have shovels. But that night, I showed him the video, and we happened to bring up a baggie of the plastics. And at 6 years old, he was absolutely intrigued as we sat there playing with the beads. And when the completed shovel was there, he goes, Dad, that's our shovel. So it was very nice to be able to apply that with the whole story. But now you've all been drowned in the whole story. So to follow up on Aspire's work now, those simple activities that they're doing can be impactful to learners of all ages. I mean, he's 6, he's just in kindergarten. So that was awesome to follow. All right, back in the technology world, we've been busy as usual, supporting folks and making sure things are working well. Big props to the Miles Lane team. We had an issue with iPads connected to a couple of our vendors, and it turns out we had an issue up above us. I think I mentioned last time from Network Maine, but that helped us help other schools solve the same problem. So at least one of the schools reached out to me and said, hey, that's the same problem we're having, thanks a lot. So it's that big network, as we always talk about. Today we were updating some more security measures, putting in some more layers to protect our servers for any sort of attack that may be there. And it's just an ongoing role of activity, if you will. This is generally our planning phase. The next 9 months are our action phase or put in place. So I don't have anything specific to say, just that we're busy, and it's very nice to have an integrator on board. Allison was able to connect with a couple teachers this week who basically said, I've been trying to do this all year. And I said, well, that's why we have Allison, to bring it to the classroom for you. And I think your meetings down at Jewett were productive. And some of it was back to us. We had things that weren't working right, and now we're able to correct them because we had someone in the classroom that has the time to work one-on-one with the teachers for technology that either needs to be there or already is, and help them show how to use it. So that's basically what I'd say as a report is thank you for the support of the structure of our team, being able to be in the classroom as well as in the back end. So I have any questions, comments?
So my son was home for the week on spring break, and he was telling me all about how there's a massive cyber war going on.
There is.
And he was wondering if any of that had spilled over into our world. And you know me and computers, so my answer was, I will get back to you.
Your answer was your pencil is unaffected, right? We are still running the supply chain. I just learned that Ukraine supplies about 40 or 60% of one of the gases used in chip production. So the chip production that's already low is going even lower. We're waiting on gear that through the E-rate process is normally installed in October. We're now filing an extension with the E-rate program saying we can't get this if we rob the truck. So we need an extension to get the equipment here. And that's simple. That's 13 access points and 5 switches. So that has just driven the market even lower for availability and slowing it. But if I was to throw our firewall up on the screen, you'd see 100 to 300 attacks per minute. Just sport, I shouldn't call them attacks. Port scanning us. That's what I want to say. Trying to see if we have something that's available to attack. And up to this point, I wish this was wood, we haven't had further venture than that. Now we are working with is a national cybersecurity firm that is funded by the federal government and is accessible to us municipalities. I think we also talked about that last week. And that sits at our forefront. So the information they're feeding us with domains or sections of domains that are known to be affiliated with cyber actors, Russian or otherwise, we are now putting in a list of just banned IPs. Before we were looking for them, monitoring, and now we immediately ban them if it comes off their intel reports. At some point that may affect us and we may need to look at how our flow works. But at this point, we're just, with a heightened situation, we're just not taking any chances. That goes for our towns as well as us. We're just banning them immediately as we have intel on them.
Good. Any other questions for Jim?
Very good, thank you.
Calendar and announcements.
Probably a big announcement is we are going to have a special meeting on March 23rd. We're looking at 3 agenda items. One I mentioned earlier, the calendar. Just because of timing, we couldn't get it there. I'm making an assumption we'll be in a position where the board can consider and possibly accept the contract, the collective bargaining agreement. We've reached that point, so that is good. And then we'll have a special presentation discussion around classification for high school football, 8-man versus 11-man. Okay, this has been an ongoing study. Mr. Ward has been right on top of it. He's met with coaches. He's got numbers, projections, so he will bring that to the conversation. But like I told him, that's really a board level decision where you go. Too much to put on the shoulders of an athletic director. But what we have to be very cognizant of is the numbers have changed. Okay, you don't have the numbers that we usually have 45, 50 kiddos, and we're dropping down, and we're looking at numbers in the low 30s. And last year we ended up with about 28 active kiddos after you had a few injuries and such. So yeah, we're going to have to take a look at a change, but we want to do it publicly and have that conversation up front.
Concern I have too is a lot of teams in this area have gone to 8-man. And we're traveling some long distances to stay with the 11, and even though I'm a traditional person, it's...
Well, the tradition returns actually, because if you went with 8-man, most of your schedule is going to be made up of the traditional teams.
Where we were, right. And yeah, you got away from that this year.
And ultimately, I think Bob Sinclair, and I don't know if folks know Bob Sinclair, he's a former assistant principal here, and he's been a long time coach, coaches up to Orono, and he says it's still football.
Yeah.
Right? Kids are still tackling and, running, passing, and it's just modified.
Yep. Once we go to 8-man, it's not going to go back either.
It's very unlikely, but the MPA has designed a structure where the opportunity is to go back if that changes.
The numbers go up.
Right. So, and they do have structures, and I'm getting ahead of this whole thing, but there are structures where they experience that one very large private school in southern Maine had well over 55, 60 kids, and they went into 8-man. Yeah, and so that they've learned from that, and they're discouraging that. So if you're over a certain number, and I think it's 35, you have to petition
to go
down. So
you could have an entire team just defense, an entire team just offense.
So, but yeah, that presentation will come from Aaron, and we'll try to get more information. As usual, Aaron's got a very good background information for you folks to have, so that'll be sent out to you. Okay. Following that, my goal is to have a board workshop. That was originally a board workshop night for budget. Hopefully we can get through those 3 items in a relative time frame so we can adjourn and then open up a budget workshop. And we will have draft 2 hopefully ready to go for you then, and we'll talk about a couple of smaller cost centers. So get started on that process, okay? And then we have our usual list of meetings, curriculum, April 14, policy, April 12th, if necessary, you'll see. Finance and school board meeting, April 19th. Facilities committee on the 14th, and the SPIRE committee meets April 5th. Okay.
All right. It's time to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Ooh, sounds like we're interested. All those in favor?
Great
That is
enthusiasm.
unanimous. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.